Hello everyone, I am Brett, aka the Connecticut Gamer, and today I have a two-part video for you guys. So, today I'm going to be talking about 20 of my favorite games. So, that doesn't mean the best games, that doesn't mean the most popular games, that doesn't mean the cheapest or most expensive games. There's games that I personally like. And they range from stuff from the 80s to stuff from, I don't know, pretty recently. And they also range wildly in price, from stuff that you can pick up for, I don't know, say $5-10 all day long, to stuff you'd be hard pressed to find for under 50. So there's plenty of variation, and these are also games that I personally own. There are a few that I could have included that I don't own, but I've played at friends' houses, and so on and so forth. However, to keep the video shorter and to make it easier, I'm just going to talk about games that I own. So, first off, I'd like to start out with the two Game Boy Advance games I've picked. So, total I have three handheld games, two of them being for the Game Boy Advance. And the first one is Metroid Zero Mission. Now, this game is not for everyone. It is a retelling of the original Metroid. And so if you want a more original Metroid experience, get Metroid Fusion, because they actually made two Metroid games for the Game Boy Advance. One Zero Mission, the other's Fusion, which actually came out a few years earlier than Zero Mission. But I love Zero Mission. I like how it takes all of the original Metroid and puts it into the same style graphically and storyline wise that you'd get from Super Metroid, I think is a good way to put it. It's a very good game. It's difficult, but it's not like I can't beat this level difficult. It's like, oh, if I just tried harder doing this, or if I just did this differently, I could beat it. It's a very beatable game. It's just definitely going to take you a little bit of time. So mine is a reproduction copy. It's the only one I have that's on this list. But most of the reason for that boils down to, if I got an original copy, it'd be like $100 for the loose cartridge, and I paid, I want to say, $15 for this. It works the exact same, so why wouldn't I? So up next, I'd like to talk about my other Game Boy Advance game, and it's actually the first game ever played on my Game Boy Advance. Sorry, second. Not the first, it's the second. But that is Pokemon Sapphire. And I got this when I was 8, because my friend Nick had given me his Game Boy. Yeah, his Game Boy Advance. And he had said, here you go, here's a Game Boy Advance, and he gave me one game with it. I'm like, okay. And it was some Kids Next Door game, and I don't have it anymore, I don't believe. And it was okay, but it wasn't like, oh my god, this is amazing. And so I had this other friend whose name was also Nick. And he said, I have a lot of Game Boy Advance games that I used to play, and we've sold some of them, but I still have some. Do you want me to look through, see what I have? Yeah, of course. And so he gave me two Game Boy Color games. One was a Simpsons one was the Grinch. They're both eh. And then he gave me Pokemon Sapphire. And it's the only Pokemon game that I really like. I've played Red and Crystal on the 3DS eShop. I own Sun. And all of them are okay, but really, if I want to play one to have fun, it's gotta be Sapphire. So after that, we might as well put all of these to the side and talk about my last handheld game, which is the first 3DS game I played. And it's another very comfort food type of game, and that's Super Mario 3D Land. I could play it for 3 hours, doing the same you know, special 8 castle level or crown, whatever it is. The hardest level in the game. And I wouldn't get tired of it, really. It's just a very fun, very replayable stage. But actually, as a whole, the entire game is comfort food. That's a good way to put it. Because it has a lot of the same quirks and features of 2D Mario, but it has some of them of 3D Mario. It's good in my opinion. It's just not a very in-depth Mario game, should we say. However, keeping with the theme of Mario games, I'd like to talk about the other one I own, and what I think might just be in my top 3, if not probably my top 5. But this is one of my favorite games. Super Mario Bros. 3. And it is amazing. I love everything about it. I love how you went from having Super Mario Bros. 1 on the NES, which looked okay for the time, to having the lost levels, as we know, in North America, and they do in PAL regions, or Super Mario Bros. 2 is in Japan, and that was basically the same as the first one, to then 2 in North America in PAL regions, or USA in Japan, and that was not really a Mario game. It was initially based on Doki Doki Panic. It wasn't a Mario game, really, kind of. It was weird. And they did Mario 3, which brought it back to where it was with the first one, and it looks like Super Mario World more so than any of the other games, bar none. Looks great, sounds great. Same story as all the other ones, just save the princess. And it's a pretty cheap game. They can be found for a decent price. I paid $20 for mine, but I got mine about, I don't know, I'd say about 4, maybe 5 years ago. So they definitely have gone up in price since then, but I don't think they've like skyrocketed per se. So now I've gotten the handhelds out of the way, might as well keep with the theme of cartridge games, which are all Nintendo actually. But also, most of that's because the only cartridge systems I own other than Nintendo systems are, I have a Sega Genesis, a Sega Game Gear, and then an Atari 2600. And none of those games really like compelled me. You know, I mean, I definitely could have picked 1 or 2 out of the group, but the next one I'd like to talk about, and the last North American one I have, because all the other ones I have to talk about are Japanese. That's 007 Agent Under Fire. And that game is stellar in so many ways. It not only basically defined first-person console shooters, but it also just revolutionized the idea of what can be done on a console. Because at least from my understanding at the time, the graphics that happened in that game and the level of stuff going on happening in that game was like PC only. Like you could not do that on a home video game system. And then Rare made GoldenEye 007 and blew everyone out of the water with it. And it was amazing. And they made Perfect Dark a couple years later, and it was even better. So now, keeping with N64 games, but switching gears, definitely, we have what, according to a lot of people, is the best video game of all time. And according to a lot of websites, is one of, if not the best video game of all time, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. So I have the Japanese copy because I picked it up for $20, and I picked it up a little under a year ago. I picked it up in like October-ish of last year. So like October of 2021. And I paid $20 for it, but I definitely would have paid more for a North American copy. But just the gameplay revolutionized what was thought of for Zelda. Just everything about it was spot on perfect. I really couldn't have asked for a better N64 Zelda game. And then they did it again with Majora's Mask, which is another all-star amazing game. So the next games I'd like to talk about, I'm going to talk about together because they're very similar games. They follow a lot of the same themes and format and a lot of that. They're both Super Famicom fighting games. That is Street Fighter 2 Turbo and Ranma 1/2. I do not know which one this is. I believe it's pronounced No Deja Hayu. But I might be thinking of a completely different Ranma game because they made 4 of them, I believe. And like I said, they're both fighting games. They're both a lot of fun. They can both be very easy or very difficult, depending on who you're playing against. Just as a whole, they are very good games, both of them. I personally like Ranma more. However, I have a video game club at my school and I run it. And with a lot of them, their favorite game is Ranma. It's actually this Ranma right here. And so I think that's a good part of it too, is that just they love the game, you know. But like, today I was visiting with some cousins of mine, and we were playing Ranma, and we were playing a couple of other games that I'm going to bring up in a couple minutes. It'll actually be in the next part. And all of them, and of course we were playing Street Fighter, they were just having a blast with these games. I mean, it was insane. So then the final game I'd like to talk about, and also arguably the best JRPG of all time, which might sound a little crazy, because a lot of you are probably like, oh, it's Final Fantasy 3/6, depending on where you're from. Or you're like, oh, it's got to be Final Fantasy 7, or insert any other RPG, really? No. Chrono Trigger. And now, I bought the Japanese copy for 2 reasons. The first, and the main one being, a US copy would have been close to $300, and I bought it for $14, because I bought the Japanese copy. And European copies would have been about the same. I think they would have been like $250, $260. And I don't want to pay those prices. No, thank you. And so if I can pay $15 and get the exact same games in Japanese, I'm all for it. And also, I bought it when I first bought the Super Famicom, and I was looking for Super Famicom games. And I knew that that was one that I had to have for the Super Nintendo, and I'm like, okay, well, if I can't have the Super Nintendo because of price, I'm going to get it for the Super Famicom. And I'm glad that I did, because it is a stellar game. So that should just about wrap it up for part 1 of this video. I talked about 10 games today. And I was initially just going to do 10, that'd be 1 part. And the more I kept walking, the more I was like, yeah, no, I really have more games to talk about than just 10 that I really like. So I made it 20, and I made it a 2-part video. So take care, be safe, and I will see you guys in the next one, where I talk about the second half of this list. Take care.